My name is Lena Hart, I'm 22 years old, and I live just outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in a quiet suburb where the biggest drama used to be who forgot to take out the recycling bin. My family's tight-knit, or at least we used to be. Mom's a school librarian, Dad's a retired firefighter, and I'm the only child. I always thought that was a blessing. Turns out, it just means there's nowhere to hide when things go wrong. Before I take you into the night everything shifted, I want to ask you for a small favor, one that might change something in your life, too. If you subscribe to this channel, you'll get more than just stories. You'll find moments that make you feel understood, seen, maybe even a little less alone. Every week, I'll bring you a new piece of real life, raw, emotional, and unforgettable. If you've ever looked at your own family and wondered if anyone else feels the same confusion, the same love and pain tangled up together, this is your space. So subscribe, and let's walk through these stories together. It was a Sunday evening. We were at Bella Trattoria, my mom's favorite little Italian place with fake grapevines hanging from the ceiling and Frank Sinatra playing just a little too loud. Dad wore his nice flannel, and Mom had curled her hair. She always made an effort, even if no one else did. I was halfway through my penne arrabbiata, tuning out a story my dad was telling about the firehouse back in the 90s, when my phone buzzed on the table. It was him. Mason. The text lit up my screen like a spark in a dry field. Act normal. Walk away in 10 seconds. My heart flipped in my chest. I read it twice, then once more. I looked up. My mom was laughing, probably at something my dad had said. Neither of them noticed my face drain of color. I glanced toward the door. He wasn't there. I scanned the windows. Nothing. But I felt it, this buzzing in my bones, a pull like a magnet under my skin. And somehow, without thinking, I stood up. I need to use the restroom, I said quickly. Mom nodded, mid-sip of her red wine. Dad didn't even pause his story. I walked away, not toward the restroom but to the back exit. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. I pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the alley. He was waiting. Leaning against the wall in that worn leather jacket, hood up, eyes shadowed but unmistakably Mason. He didn't speak. Just reached for my hand. And I followed. That moment, that tiny decision, was the fracture line in my life. The Lena who sat at that table was not the same Lena who stepped into that alley. We didn't talk for the first 5 minutes. We just walked, fast, his grip tight around my fingers like he thought I'd vanish if he let go. The alley gave way to side streets, and side streets turned into neighborhoods I didn't recognize. Finally, I yanked my hand back. What the hell is going on? I asked, breathless. Mason turned to face me, and for the first time I saw panic in his eyes. Not just worry. Panic. They're watching your parents. I couldn't text more. I shouldn't even be here. But you were in danger too, Lena. I stared at him. You disappeared 3 weeks ago. No calls, no messages, nothing. And now you show up like some bargain bin spy thriller and tell me my parents are being watched. I didn't disappear. I was taken, he said, voice low. And I got out. He looked around. But they're not done with me. And they're sure as hell not done with you. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my life started to peel back, like paint on a burning wall. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick. I didn't even know what to ask first. All I knew was that Mason, my ex-boyfriend, the one who ghosted me after 2 years of dating and broke me with silence, was standing in front of me talking about surveillance and danger and things that didn't fit into the neat world I thought I lived in. And I still hadn't told my parents I'd left the table. Somewhere inside the restaurant, the waiter was probably clearing away my half-eaten pasta. And my mom was wondering if I was okay. My dad might have already asked for the check. And I was here, in the dark, on the edge of something I couldn't name yet. Mason reached into his jacket. I flinched. He held up a small envelope. Everything you need to know is in here. But we have to keep moving. I should have run back. I should have screamed or called someone or at least demanded a better explanation. But I didn't. Because a part of me had always known something wasn't right. And somehow, walking away from that table felt like walking toward the truth. We kept walking. It wasn't until we were 3 blocks from the restaurant that I realized my phone was still in my coat pocket. I pulled it out. 17 missed calls. 2 from Mom. 1 from Dad. The rest, blocked numbers. Unknown. Mason, I said, holding it up, why are there blocked numbers calling me? He grabbed the phone, turned it off without a word, and slipped it into his back pocket. We can't use that. Not now. His voice was flat, decisive. Like someone who'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in his head. I wanted to scream. Or cry. Maybe both. But all I could do was follow. The streets around us had changed. No more cozy brick sidewalks or twinkly storefronts. We were in the industrial edge of town now, warehouse windows boarded up, chain-link fences curling at the top like barbed wire. The streetlights flickered. I felt the city's heartbeat change. Faster. Colder. Where are we going? I asked again, more firmly this time. There's a place, he said. Just for tonight. Just for tonight. That phrase curled around my ribs like ice. He led me to a rundown motel behind a gas station. No sign. Just a flickering vacancy light and a cracked ice machine humming like it was on its last breath. Mason paid cash. No ID. He didn't speak to the guy behind the counter. Just slid over a wad of bills and took the key. Room 108. The air inside was musty, like old carpet and cigarette ash that never quite left. The bedspread was floral in the way that made your skin itch just looking at it. But I didn't care about the room. I cared about the envelope in Mason's jacket. He tossed it on the nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed. You said everything I need to know is in there, I said. So tell me. What the hell is going on? He rubbed his face like he hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. I didn't ghost you, Lena. I was taken. 3 weeks ago. 2 men grabbed me outside my apartment, shoved me into a van. No markings, no plates. I thought I was dead. But it wasn't like that. I crossed my arms, unsure whether to believe him or call the cops. They kept me somewhere underground, he continued. No windows. Just lights that never turned off. They asked questions. Over and over. About you. About your dad. I blinked. My dad? Mason nodded. They wanted to know where he was the night of May 18, 2003. That was over 20 years ago, I said. I was, too. I know, he said. But they think your dad saw something that night. Or did something. And they think he's kept it hidden all these years. My mouth went dry. Mason opened the envelope and handed me a photo. Black and white. Grainy. It showed a man, faintly resembling my dad, standing outside a burning building. He looked younger. Hair darker. But it was him. I shook my head. This doesn't prove anything. There's more, he said, pulling out a USB drive. Footage. Names. Records. They wanted me to use you to get closer to your dad. But I wouldn't. That's why I disappeared. I escaped through the service hatch in the bathroom during a fake transfer. I ran for days. Burned everything I had. And then I came for you. I stared at the photo again. My dad. A building on fire. May 2003. That was the year he left the force for medical reasons. I'd heard the story 100 times. He said he injured his back rescuing a child from a second-story window. He even had a medal. But in this picture, he wasn't rescuing anyone. He was watching. Mason, I whispered, voice shaking, what if it's true? I don't know, he said. But someone's watching him. And now, they're watching you. I sank into the chair by the window. The motel curtains didn't close all the way. A sliver of parking lot light cut across the carpet like a wound. It hit me then, the finality of what I'd done. I had walked out of a restaurant. Left my parents. Vanished without warning. And now I was in a motel room with a boy who'd once broken my heart, holding proof that maybe my father wasn't who I thought he was. I asked the only question I could. What do we do now? Mason reached over and locked the door. Now, he said, we find out who really took me. And we figure out what your dad is hiding. And just like that, I was no longer Lena Hart, college senior with a part-time job at a bookstore and dreams of getting into grad school. I was someone else now. Someone who might never go home again. The night was thick with questions. I couldn't sleep, not even for a second. I sat on the edge of the bed while Mason lay beside me, fully clothed, one hand under the pillow where I knew he was hiding a pocket knife. Every time a car passed by outside, my stomach flipped. I kept hearing my mom's voice in my head, asking where I was. And my dad's, calm, reassuring, the way he used to sound when I had nightmares as a kid. Now I didn't even know if that voice had ever been telling me the truth. Around 3 a.m., Mason sat up and opened his backpack. He pulled out something wrapped in an old sweatshirt, a second phone. Burner style, cheap plastic, the kind you could buy in cash and throw away in a storm drain if you needed to disappear. He handed it to me. This is yours now. Use it only for me. No one else. Ever. I stared at the device, still sealed in plastic. You planned this? I asked, afraid of the answer. No, he said quietly. But I prepared for it. He sat across from me, legs crossed, back against the dresser. Do you remember the name Eli Mercer? He asked. I frowned. No. Should I? He's the man who took over your dad's firehouse when he retired. I nodded slowly. Right. He came to our house once. For that Christmas party when I was maybe 9 or 10. Mason's jaw tightened. He's not just a fire captain. He used to be part of a special unit. Government adjacent. Black bag stuff, covert fires, arson cover-ups, buried investigations. And he was in Baltimore the night that photo was taken. I blinked. How do you even know that? Mason leaned forward and held up the USB drive. Because I've seen the transfer logs. Internal memos. Reports that never made it into the public system. And he's not the only one. He showed me a list of names. Some I didn't recognize. But one I did, Avery G. Hart. My dad. Next to his name, primary witness, Class B. What does that mean? I asked, heart racing. Mason looked up. It means your dad saw something. Or did something. And someone classified it high enough to bury it for 2 decades. My head spun. What if he was just in the wrong place? I whispered. What if they made him lie? Mason didn't answer. He just looked at me with those dark eyes full of something that almost felt like guilt. Then he opened a new file on the USB. It was a video, grainy, timestamped May 18, 2003. No sound. The camera angle was low, tilted. Like it had been dropped. It showed a small building going up in flames. A figure stepped into frame. A man. He walked slowly, deliberately, holding something in his hand. It was a match. He dropped it. He watched. Then, from the corner, another man ran into frame, young, fast, panicked. He shoved the first man aside, rushed into the building. A child came out moments later, coughing, barely walking. The first man, the one who dropped the match, just stood there. I leaned closer. It's not him, I said, almost in relief. That's not my dad. Mason paused the video. No, he said. But your dad was standing off camera. Look. He rewound. Slowed the footage. In the upper left corner, barely visible, a reflection on a broken mirror. A man holding a radio, speaking into it. It was my dad. I covered my mouth. What was this place? I asked. Mason pulled up another document. Unofficially? A safe house for whistleblowers. Government insiders. Someone inside torched it before a scheduled raid. All 3 whistleblowers died in the fire. I closed my eyes. And my dad, he knew? Maybe. Or maybe they used him to buy silence. A hero medal. A pension. A story to protect. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad, the man who read to me every night until I was 12, who showed up to every parent-teacher conference and made pancakes every Sunday, could he really be part of something like this? My voice cracked. I need to see him. Mason stood. If you go back, they'll follow you. They'll trace your every move. That's what they want. They let me escape, Lena. It was bait. You're the leverage now. I looked down at the burner phone in my hand. Suddenly it felt heavy. Toxic. I'm not going back, I said, the words strange in my mouth. But I need answers. Then we follow the thread, Mason said. And we start with Eli Mercer. He handed me a folder from his bag, full of addresses, dates, phone logs. I've tracked his movement over the last year. He meets with a woman once a month. At a church outside Silver Spring. She's not in any database. No records. But she calls him August. Not Eli. August? Code name. Old operation name. He used it when things went off the books. I shivered. We go there, Mason said. But we can't go in loud. I nodded. And that was it. The line had been crossed. There was no turning back. Not without the truth. Not without blowing open a secret my father had kept buried my entire life. We left before sunrise. Mason had bought a beat-up sedan under a fake name 2 days earlier. Maryland plates, dent in the side door, glove compartment that wouldn't close. He said it was perfect because it was forgettable. No one follows a car like that. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror as we drove south, every pair of headlights behind us sending a jolt of fear through my chest. Mason didn't speak much, just tapped the steering wheel and kept his eyes locked on the road. But I could feel it in him, the tension, the pressure of carrying too many secrets for too long. Silver Spring was only about an hour away, but it felt like another country. More crowded. Less familiar. We parked 2 blocks from the church, an old stone building tucked between trees, half swallowed by ivy and shadows. It didn't look like anyone important met there. That was probably the point. Mason handed me a small earpiece and a hoodie. You stay outside, he said. If anything goes wrong, you run. Fast. Back to the car. Got it? No, I said firmly. We go in together. He looked at me for a long moment. Then nodded. The church doors weren't locked. Inside, it smelled like dust and old paper. Wooden pews, stained glass, everything dim and still. But in the back, through a side hall, we found a small meeting room. And she was there. Late 60s, sharp cheekbones, gray hair twisted into a tight bun. She wore a black blazer like it was armor. A steaming mug of tea sat untouched in front of her. She didn't look surprised to see us. You're early, she said to Mason. He frowned. You knew I was coming? I figured someone would come. Eventually. You're not as invisible as you think. Then she turned to me. And you must be Lena. My heart stopped. She gestured to the chairs. Sit. I don't have long. I wanted to ask how she knew who I was, but Mason sat without hesitation, so I followed. She folded her hands. I worked with your father. A long time ago. On what? I asked. She looked directly at me. Keeping the system intact. That sounded ominous. My father's a good man, I said, trying to hold on to the version of him I still believed in. I never said he wasn't, she replied. But even good men lie when they think it'll protect their families. She pulled out a thin file from a leather satchel. Slid it across the table. In there, she said, is what your father never told you. And why? I hesitated before opening it. Mason watched silently, jaw clenched. Inside, documents, photos, transcripts. A 2003 internal report marked classified. My father's name appeared 6 times. The phrases that leapt out burned into me. Operative Heart maintained cover protocol. Observed target site ignition. Refused extraction order in favor of civilian rescue. I looked up, tears prickling my eyes. He didn't start the fire. No, the woman said gently. But he knew who did. And he kept the secret in exchange for a deal. What kind of deal? She was quiet for a beat. Your safety. Your mother's. A new identity for a man who wanted to disappear from that world. In exchange, he said nothing. Testified to nothing. And in return, they erased him. I swallowed hard. So the whole hero story. Half true. He did save that child. But it wasn't random. That child was a witness. A liability to people in power. The woman leaned in. Lena, your father didn't lie to hurt you. He lied to protect you. But those protections are falling apart. Someone wants the truth unburied now. And they're willing to burn the past, and the people in it, to do that. Mason's voice was low. Is Eli Mercer behind it? The woman paused. No. Eli's just a middleman. The real players are 2 steps higher. But Mercer is scared, which makes him sloppy. That's your advantage. She looked at me one last time. You didn't ask for this, I know. But bloodlines don't care about consent. And your last name still opens doors. Or makes you a target. With that, she stood. I've told you more than I should. Be careful who you trust. She left before we could ask anything else. In the silence that followed, I stared at the file in my hands. Proof that my father had lived a second life. A dangerous one. One that still had long shadows. Mason reached over and touched my arm. We need to find Mercer. I nodded. Not to confront him. To understand why now. Why yes. Outside, the sky was turning gray with the early hints of dusk. And I knew we were running out of time. The next day, Mason and I followed Eli Mercer. It wasn't hard, he wasn't exactly subtle. Every Friday at 4 p.m., he left his row house in Mount Vernon, grabbed a black coffee at the same corner shop, and drove to a storage unit facility near the harbor. We waited outside for almost 2 hours until he came out. He didn't notice us. Not then. Mason had planted a GPS tracker under his rear bumper. He'd done it a dozen times before, in another life. We waited for the signal to stabilize, then drove back to our motel. We needed a plan, and the window was closing fast. That night, I called my dad. From the burner phone. No caller ID. No chance to trace. He answered on the second ring. Hello? I didn't say his name. Didn't say mine. May 18, 2003, I whispered. What happened? Silence. Dad, I saw the footage. I know what you did. Or didn't do. A pause. Then a quiet, broken voice. Where are you? I can't tell you that. I need the truth. Another pause. Then, just 5 words. Come home. I'll explain everything. I wanted to say no. To yell at him. To scream through the years of lies. But something in his voice, fragile, almost cracked, held me there. "I'll come," I said. "But if you lie to me, I'll walk away and never come back." "I won't," he said softly. "I promise." The next day, Mason drove me to my childhood home. I walked up the front steps alone. Everything looked the same: the flower pots my mom changed with the seasons, the faded welcome mat, the porch swing. But I was not the same. My dad opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Not just age, he looked worn, like something had been slowly breaking inside him for years. We sat at the kitchen table. He didn't deny anything. He told me the story as if he'd been rehearsing it his whole life. That night in 2003, he was part of a unit called Project Ignis, a joint task force assigned to monitor rogue intelligence leaks. The safe house was one of theirs. 3 insiders were about to testify against government contractors involved in illegal surveillance. Someone inside the agency gave the kill order. My father didn't start the fire, but he was ordered not to interfere. He did anyway. He saved a child. A girl. She was later silenced, relocated, renamed. In exchange for breaking protocol, my father was removed quietly from the system. Given a medical discharge, a staged injury, and enough money to disappear into suburban silence. He took it. To protect me. To keep my mom safe. "I live with it every day," he said. "I see those flames in my sleep." Tears streamed down his face. The man who taught me how to ride a bike was confessing to being part of a buried war I'd never known existed. And somehow, I didn't hate him. I couldn't. Because I saw what the guilt had done to him. I showed him the documents, the photo, the footage. He nodded slowly. "They want to open the file now because there's another leak," he said. "Someone's trying to finish what those whistleblowers started." "Mercer?" I asked. He shook his head. "Mercer's just scared of being exposed. But someone else is moving the pieces." "Who?" Mason asked. My father looked at both of us. "You need to get out of this." "That's not an answer," I said. He stood, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled down a hidden box. Inside was a name. A woman. The child he saved. Now an adult. Still in hiding. "She's the key," he said. "But if you find her, you'll be hunted too." I looked at Mason. At the man who risked everything to tell me the truth. And I thought about my mom, who still didn't know I was in the house. Who lived her life beside a man who carried a ghost inside him. I stood. "I'm not running," I said. "Not this time." Later that night, Mason and I left Baltimore. We had a new name. A new address. A new trail to follow. But something had changed in me. For 22 years, I thought I was just a girl with a quiet family and a simple life. Now I knew better. Now I knew there was fire in my blood. Truth buried in ash. And a story only I could finish.